Well, I guess we can go ahead and kick things off here, and then we don't have like a huge agenda, but there's a couple things we wanted to ask you to felt like with your experience and knowledge that you'd be able to help us get some clarity on it. But yeah, so thank you guys for showing up. This is More Than Tattoos podcast. My name's Chris. This is my co-host Tim. We have a special guest here this evening, all the way out from Utah. OG tattooer, been in the game almost 30 years, if I'm not mistaken. There, wins best awards, best tattoo shop out in Utah almost every year running. So I'm anxious to pick this gentleman's brain here and learn some stuff. So yeah, Jared Preslar. Hopefully I said that fucking right. I said it and I was like, fuck.
I should have. You got it.
Nice.
Nailed
man.
it.
Nice. I was like, that was one of the things I wanted to clarify before we actually started that I didn't do. But yeah, man. So how's your week been?
Yeah, great, man. Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. First of all, and yeah, the week's going good so far. How about you guys?
I mean, I can't say anything too hot. I mean, I'm alive. I'm doing great, but dude, I've been having tooth pain like a mofo this last week. Broken tooth, a molar in the back. So, pushing through it. And honestly, I feel like this has been a pretty productive week despite that.
Yeah.
Because it's just been like, I've been orange on like a motherfucker, so I don't feel anything on the right side of my jaw right now. But it's like this humming in my head. But it's been productive.
Tooth pain is no joke. That's not
Dude.
fun.
No, you're not kidding.
I've been lucky there. I haven't had any yet. So, but yeah, my week's been good. I've been on daddy duty a lot, man. I got a 9-year-old and a 2-year-old, and they've been keeping me busy. That's been good. Go back to work tomorrow. I've had like fucking 6 days off, I think. So it'll be nice to get back to the grind.
Good timing too, because we have like, it was like what, -16?
Oh god.
2 days ago. Ugh.
That's
Man.
Yeah, that's too cold. We haven't got that cold, but it's man, that's cold. -16.
What's the weather like even in Utah?
Oh, we've been getting dumped on. I mean, we have a lot of snow right now. In fact, we just have another winter storm warning pop up right before I got on here, and but we typically don't get. I mean, we don't get into negatives normally. Not in the valley. That's the Salt Lake Valley, but up in some of the mountain towns for sure, you get in the negatives.
Okay, so Tim was saying Utah, and I was trying to rack my brain on like what. I've never been out that way, but now that you say Salt Lake, you guys have a huge tattoo convention out there every year, don't you?
Yeah. There's the Salt Lake Tattoo Convention. Yeah, that happens every year.
Nice.
I don't partake in that, but it's there.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't do many either. I think we got Hell City on the radar this year in Columbus, and then we got a up and coming convention here in Dayton. It's like 25 minutes from the home, called Cyan Invitational. That it was pretty cool last year, and we're gonna have Josh Wiley, the guy who runs the show, on one of the shows, on one of the episodes here in the next couple weeks. But I'm not a huge convention person. Being a dad, having the shop, I feel like social media I kind of do everything through social media that I kind of would do a convention for. So not a huge reason for me anyways, but yeah, I have you ever been to Hell City?
No. Is Derb still doing? Derb does Hell City, or?
Yeah.
No,
there's one in Columbus and out in Phoenix.
Yeah, I've heard it's a good show. I've never been. I'm kind of the same as you. I used to do a shit ton of conventions, a lot of shows, and I really just there's a whole story behind that, but I really burnt myself out and was on a trip in Germany and was just counting down the days to come home, and after that, it took me 3 years to commit again. I canceled all my trips when I got home, and I rebooked to next year. Then the next year I canceled, and I canceled the next year, right? So I kept moving out further and further because I still didn't feel ready to. I was just so burnt out, man. I was coming home and just repacking to go somewhere else, and yeah, that's not for me. I know other people like it, and it energizes them, but it was super draining and really stressful for me. But
Yeah, I'm used to having the weekends off. So like Friday, I work Fridays, but Saturday, Sunday, Monday, like I don't really do anything. So to work through the week and then take off and then work all weekend, I mean, those shows make for some long weekends sometimes for sure.
yeah, I agree. I think that's another thing I thought of when I was coming home from that trip. I actually ended up in the hospital in Amsterdam on that trip too, but on my layover, it was just it just sucked. The whole thing sucked. But when I got back, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna stay home. I'm gonna focus on my clientele here, and just really want to focus on evolving my art more, and not worry about all the shows and conventions. I had a hard time saying no. That was essentially my problem, right? I would say yes, and I think, well, are they going to invite me again if I say no? And all these, and I eventually just had to just say no if I didn't want to go. Right? I was saying yes to things I really didn't want to go to, and so
Right. And, I'm just curious, having tattooed for just about under 30 years, right?
right. Hmm.
So do you feel like there's a period of time for tattooers where they have to be in that, where they just have to be yes people and do the things they don't want to do to get somewhere? Or
No, I think I just was putting the cart before the horse. No, I don't think so. I think I thought that I needed to do that, and I realized, near the end there that I was doing it backwards. And if I wanted to do that, then maybe do that later on for whatever purposes. But no, I don't. Especially with, the social media, like he was saying. I did. I don't know if you really need to do shows. At the time, there was a lot of magazine articles, right? I have a lot of different, plaques in the shop that from different magazine articles from different countries, and that was cool. But I mean, people don't really buy magazines anymore, do they? I mean, I don't think so. I don't
Right.
think that. So, and then to win awards, essentially, right? That was usually my agenda. Became my agenda was, just planning on what contest I was going to enter, and wanted to bring home trophies. So
I would find myself a lot of times at the shows like, you would think when you go to a show, you go to network, you go to meet other artists, you go to meet vendors, maybe potential sponsors, maybe gain new clients. But what I was finding myself doing was I would pre-book someone for the show. A lot of times they would travel with me. I'd get there, I'd tattoo my ass off, enter, not win, and then come home. So like defeat the purpose of what I feel like a convention's actually kind of for. And speaking of awards, like I got a couple of them. I literally just packed them up from the shop and put them in a box to bring home. Like I don't feel the same towards those anymore. I don't feel like I need to prove anything by winning something, even though it feels good in the moment. But I was curious. You had mentioned with Germany. I feel like tattooing overseas, like that would be huge on my radar. But for you to say that it just wasn't a good time or that good of a show, it's kind of surprising to me.
no, it wasn't that at all. I was just experiencing major travel burnout, right? And
Gotcha.
yeah, it had nothing to do with the quality or my experiences. I
Gotcha.
always wanted to go to Germany, and most of my traveling and most of my shows were overseas, right? So most of my guest spots were overseas, and so I was just out of the country a lot, and getting there and jet lagged and lack of sleep, and right, it's just hard. But that last one was just really rough for me, and I was really missing my daughter, and just being gone so much, and I ended up getting Campylobacter, and that's why I was in the hospital in Amsterdam. They wouldn't let me leave the country, and they thought I might have appendicitis, wouldn't let me fly. And anyway, No, I've had great experiences in Europe.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. Early on in my tattoo journey, I was watching a YouTube video, and I think Tim mentioned you were a big fan of Philip Liu.
yeah.
I was watching. And I tried to find this video again on YouTube just to kind of just watch it again, I guess. But he was doing like a tour of his studio, and one specific thing I remember from this video that I think about all the time, and I don't ever get to experience it. But when he first walked into the studio, there was like 5 or 6 artists kind of up on a platform tattooing, and all those coil machines were just harmonizing, all perfect. Have you ever been to his studio?
No, but you were just bringing back some memories. I looked up to Philip Blue even way back in the beginning of my career, and because he was doing things that nobody else was, right? These huge areas of black and gray and these really soft transitioning gradients, and you're just like, how the fuck is he doing this shit? He's using huge mags. And anyway, I wanted to get tattooed by him, and I saved my arm for years, right? And kept reaching out to him, trying to get a hold of him. And I was at the London show, and when was that? In 2012, I think it was 2012. And I ran into him, and finally got to talk to him. I was like, dude, I've been trying to get a hold of you for 7 years and he smiled, and he kind of put his head down, and he shook his head. He's like, I'm sorry, man. He's like, I'd be happy to do your sleeve. I said, I pretty much do just bodysuits now, but I'd be, happy to do a sleeve for you. And so we planned it, I booked it. And in the meantime, I was fighting some symptoms, some ailments. I didn't know what was going on, but my doctor didn't want me flying while they were trying to figure things out. They thought maybe all the flying was causing neurological symptoms, like maybe sinuses or something. But anyway, I ended up having Lyme disease, and I had to cancel my appointment with Philip, which was a huge bummer, right?
Man.
Yeah, and I haven't been tattooed since then, actually, because again, I don't know, the impact for me and on my body, and my doctor was concerned with the strain of the lymphatic system that tattooing can do, and so I just haven't been tattooed. I still have like Lyme disease is a lifelong thing, right? So I don't know. I don't know what that means for me, and I don't really want to find out, I guess,
Right. And now, how long has that been?
Since I've treated it, or since I've had it?
Well, how long since you've been tattooed, I guess?
Oh, let's see. Jeff Gogwe, he's the last one to tattoo me. I have a back piece by him, but it's not done. I think that was, when was that? I don't know when that was. Maybe. Not great with time, man. My perception of time is it goes by so fast. I want to say maybe it was 2015, maybe.
Yeah.
Jeez.
That's another name I haven't heard in a long time, Jeff Gogwe. I'm sure he's still rocking, though.
Yeah. I saw he opened a new place up there in Oregon, and I don't know. I used to be more in touch with him, but I haven't been. But I follow him still. Looks like he's still doing awesome work.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, to all three of us, like reasons I had found you on social media, and it kind of brings all these things together. We had saw a video that you had posted about the lymphatic system, I think, and kind of like what tattooing really does to the body, and it's like really just breaking down the whole system of it. That was kind of a rough, gist of the things, but did your own kind of, health concerns kind of like lead you into some of these, bigger issues that I feel like you're trying to tackle in tattooing?
Some of them for sure. Yeah, there's some things I never considered before, right? And all the time. So I was treated for Lyme disease for 3 years and had three different doctors I was working with, and they all had different knowledge and education. So it was nice to have different perspectives. But like the one, for example, and I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this. I know Jeff has when I talked to him about it, but when I'd get my back piece worked on, my lymph nodes down by my groin would hurt for a couple days after I would be tattooed all day. And Jeff said he had the same experience getting tattooed by Shige in Japan, right? He would have sore lymph nodes down there, and that kind of concerned me or got me thinking, geez, if my lymph nodes are sore, what impact is that having on my body and my lymphatic system in general? And who knows? It might be minor. It could. I'm not. I was never saying like, look out, this is gonna kill us.
Right. It's the secret killer.
Yeah, it was just more of a awareness and things I haven't thought of before, where I was battling health issues. So yeah, that is where the majority of that stemmed from.
Gotcha.
Aside from the regulations, the regulation stuff in general, I've been focusing on that for 15 years. So that was before the Lyme stuff, but more of
Right.
wondering what impact it has on the body, and all I was saying in that post, and that did piss off a lot of tattoo artists, right? I had to limit the comments, and it's funny because no consumer, like I had a lot of tattoo collectors message me and say, hey, I appreciate you doing that, and yeah, it would be nice to know, right? Like it's people have the right to know something if what and if any risks there are before they make that decision, right? And so that's all I was saying. I wasn't saying it's bad for you, or because we don't know, right? We don't know the impact.
Right, and I can't imagine that a tattooer himself would want to make his piece of content that is like completely pushing away all of his business, right? Like, don't get tattoos anymore,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I
Yeah.
did wonder that. I wondered, God, I hope nobody. But I thought I was pretty clear, what I wrote, that it wasn't. It was basically just saying that there's a lot we don't know, right? Because there
Yeah.
is. There's just a lot that hasn't been studied, and we don't know. And maybe certain people like me, the majority of people that get sick with Lyme, and I've met other people like this that are heavily tattooed, and they found out their tattoos were contributing to their symptoms when they had Lyme disease, right? So I've met several people like that, and so anyway, maybe certain people, certain ailments, it might not be great for, right? And the majority of people get sick with Lyme disease have the MTHFR gene defect, and which I have. That's a methylation gene defect. So my body doesn't methylate correctly, right? It doesn't detox correctly, and so that could be a concern, surrounding what I'm choosing to put in my body.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you wouldn't mind, just in case there's any viewers who are listening who maybe don't know what Lyme disease is, would you mind just sharing a little bit about that, just create some clarity?
Yeah, I guess without going, too crazy down the rabbit
Sure.
hole, it is a man-made disease, right? It was made in Plum Island, back east Lyme, Connecticut. It was released by our military within ticks, right? And for what purpose, I don't know. And this is all well documented, right? It's not some conspiracy theory. It was a medical doctor who steered me onto it and told me about it. But anyway, it's a bacteria essentially. It's a spirochete, and they used to think it was from ticks only, but they found you can get it from any vector bite, right? You can get it from mosquitoes, spiders, ticks. So, where I got it, I don't know, and how long ago, I don't know. I could have had it for many years before it started making me, giving me symptoms. But and these doctors that I was working with, they say that, over at least 50% of the population has Lyme disease at this point, right? And
Oh, wow.
most people, it doesn't make sick. So they're thinking there's a huge link in that MTHFR gene defect, right, of the people that get sick. So,
Gotcha. So if you have that effect, that you're more likely to show. I didn't know that the percentage was that high.
Yeah, that's
wild.
fucking crazy.
Yeah, they say it's like a this hidden epidemic because that's a whole other I guess when you get into the cover-up side of it, because they didn't want to admit things that were done with it and that it was released on purpose. And so for a long time the CDC and the medical community just denied its existence, right? They said it's not real, it doesn't exist, and had doctors laugh at me when I said that I think I might have it, because I'd go home every night and research my symptoms, and I kept coming up with Lyme disease, right? And well, we don't have Lyme disease in Utah. Or some other doctor said, well, Lyme only affects dogs, and shit like that. So it's crazy. There's still a lot of misconceptions around it, and until recently, I'd say the past maybe 10 years is when they actually started teaching about it in medical school, right? So a lot of doctors don't know shit about Lyme disease, is what I found.
Wow.
Dude, what a crazy case of like self-diagnosing really just being the healthiest thing, right?
Usually you hear, don't go to Google,
Right. That WebMD is going to fucking tell you you're going to be dead in 3 days.
Yeah, I
That's
don't know
wild.
how much money I spent, how many years I spent going to doctors, but it was a bit over 6 years, right? So that's why I kept going back to the internet, and because I just kept getting, we can't find anything, or I was misdiagnosed with several different things, right? Like trigeminal neuralgia and MS, and had a doctor tell me that they thought I had a brain tumor, right? Like all these crazy
Holy shit.
diagnosis, yeah. So it was really frustrating and just hard, because in the meantime, you're having these symptoms and something's wrong and they can't find it. And for a while, I was thinking I might have cancer, right? I even started on that whole, what's his name, Rick Simpson. I started on that Rick Simpson oil, right? Because I'm like, well, geez, I think I might have cancer because I can't figure out what's going on. So started making that his oil and treating myself for, that I might have cancer. But yeah, it was crazy.
Man. All the time with doctors, all that, and you figure it out yourself. That's wild.
It's commendable for sure.
Yeah, it was actually a naturopath who eventually, officially diagnosed me, right, through a test, an antibody test, and I guess the Western blot test they give in the doctor's office is only 20% accurate, which I had, and it showed me as negative. There was a guy in Idaho I was seeing. He specializes in Lyme, and I like what he does is he pokes your finger, takes some blood out, puts it under a slide in a dark field microscope, and puts it up on a big monitor. I mean, you can see your blood cells, right? And well, they look for Lyme markers in the blood, and he's like, well, I look for 5. I like to see 5 Lyme markers. Well, he only saw 3, so he didn't feel confident diagnosing me with Lyme. I saw another lady, she did the same thing, but this time she smashed the blood cells. Like she had a little piece of plastic and she was breaking them open. And then we saw spirochetes come out of my blood cells, right? Like they were coming out, they're looking for another blood cell to burrow into. And I watched this on the monitor, and that's when we 100% knew it was Lyme disease.
Wow.
Dude, fucking crazy.
Yeah, and I do gotta say, some of these words you're throwing out, I'm not familiar with, but to actually watch that on the screen and to be able to see, you called them spiromites?
Spirochetes.
Is that what you call spirochetes? To see that, like literally watching them try to burrow back into blood cells, that's wild.
Yeah, that was
fucking metal for sure.
That's fucking metal.
That wasn't a very good feeling to see that, because
Sure.
to know, well, that's what's going on in my body, right? And then every time I went in to see that doctor, that's what she would do, right? She would take my blood, we'd look at it under a dark field microscope. So, I mean, it can be, I guess, I don't want to say disheartening, but kind of take some of the wind out of your cells, right? When you're seeing this going on in your blood, but what can you do? Just keep chugging along, right?
Right. Yeah, and I mean, dude, sometimes I wake up and I feel whether it be in a rut or just kind of bleh, and I have things that I'll try to do to to snap back in that like frame of mind, keep going. You're trying to remain positive. I mean, there's got to be things that you focus on. Do what are you into hobby wise, or stuff that keep you going? I mean, just tattooing 30 years alone, I feel like can be. I could imagine being tough to feel motivated. I mean, what keeps you pushing?
I think you just hit the nail on the head. I really, like, for example, I have a big morning routine, right? Like, one of the first things I do when my feet hit the floor is, I'll sit on the edge of my bed and I do gratitude. I do 5 or 10 minutes of gratitude, right? Of saying or reading all the things I'm grateful for in my life, right? And then I use the restroom and I go get in cold plunge. I have a cold plunge and I just get in the ice cold water, and that's another thing that I like, and it releases dopamine and makes me feel good for hours, and then meditation, and so the meditation is another part of the routine, and so I think that alone, that morning routine, I think helps a lot. And I was listening to Ed Milet recently, and he was talking about how he during his morning routine, because I guess a lot of people of success have these, right? That's where I learned to have a morning routine, and he just won't have any access to his phone, not until his morning routine's done. Then he'll turn the phone on, so there's no outside interference and nothing to make his brain go a different direction, or what I mean, not till he's ready to start his day. So I was thinking that would be a nice thing to implement too, because that's usually the first thing I check when I wake up, right? And
phone. Yeah, man. I take a steamer and check my phone.
Right. It's hard not to, 2 birds, 1 stone. I've heard a lot of people do that though. It's like you said, just successful people in general. I feel like a commonality is they always got a strong morning routine, and they really tend to not let things distract them or set up like a way for success so it's impossible for them to fail, right? But I've never actually talked to someone that did the like cold plunge. When did you like start doing that? Or have you like just always taken like the cold showers in the morning, or?
No, I saw Wim Hof, right? I'm sure you guys know who Wim Hof is, right? Or maybe you don't. The Iceman. Oh,
you mentioned a lot of names that I'm unfamiliar with. That's nice.
He's Wim Hof. He's known as the Iceman. His nickname's the Iceman. Long story short, he lost his wife and many years ago, and he started doing cold exposure as a way of coping, essentially, right? And like he hiked Everest in shorts and his sandals, right? He had no shirt on, and anyway, he was. They've studied him in different, universities, and trying to figure out how he hasn't been sick for 30 years, and where he does all this cold plunging. And anyway, so the health benefits really started interesting me, and he has an app, and I started doing the cold showers, and then I wanted to go to the ice baths. I have this life coach at the time, and he would do the ice baths. I'm like, I want to try that just because it's something that seems mentally challenging to do. And so I got a stock tank and put it in my backyard, and would dump bags of ice in it, and I would go get in it. And my first time, my goal was a minute, and I ended up liking it so much. I started searching for some sort of unit that I have one in my house now. It's just always the temperature that it's supposed to be, and I just take the cover off and I get in the morning and cover it back up, and don't have to do all the ice and everything, but yeah, I mean, it's great for there's a lot of health benefits, not just mental, and the mental resilience, right? Because there's no morning that I want to get in ice cold water, right? I'm never like excited. I'm never excited to do it. In fact, this morning I was kind of a little bit of procrastinating, just didn't feel like getting in the cold, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna fuck it, I'm gonna go do it, and it's that first, I'd say 40 seconds that's the hardest, and then after that it's easy. I I lay in there for 5 minutes, and inflammation, the dopamine, like I said, your immune system. There's multiple benefits for it, but I really like the challenge part, that you're doing something out of your comfort zone, and something that's hard, and you're doing it no matter if you want to or not, right? Or you feel like it or not. So that's the part I like.
Really
about it.
attacking that like discipline aspect of things.
Yeah, and so it's so interesting that you brought that up, Jared, because I just watched this video. I want to say it was like 2 weeks ago or something. It was it was one guy that was on a podcast. It was his show or whatever. But he had this doctor on that felt like he had just discovered this new thing, and it had to do with the. It was like he called it like the don't want to do it muscle or something. But there's this part of your brain that actually every time they did studies, and he's obviously way better explaining this than I was, or I am. But they did these studies where people would like take a task that ambiguously some people wouldn't want to do it and other people wouldn't want to do it. So they ran all these people through these things, and they found out that there was this part of your brain that actually expands when you literally do something you don't want to do, or you're forcing yourself into a position where you do something you don't want to do, and you actually build that as a muscle. Like it's like because I feel like you hear discipline, and that's oftentimes confused with being like a mental aspect or something, like having the endurance within yourself to just do it. But he was explaining it in a way where it has a lot to do with your like fight and flight responses, and like you're like physically building this like don't want to do it muscle, so that like when you are constantly putting yourself in this place of like discomfort, you're actually getting better at like doing the tougher things in life. Or like I said, he explained it a lot better, but it's kind of like with growth, things tend to get harder, but it's that muscle that actually gets you better at doing like the more difficult things, or getting nervous in front of a huge crowd to give this speech because you've never given a speech this large before or something. It's that muscle in you that actually is pushing you to do those like next level things. So it's really interesting that something just like having that morning routine that you're really strict on, but also like doing something like that ice bath. And I love you saying like there's never a morning I want to get up and get in that ice bath, but I know how healthy it is for my my physical being and my mental state. So that's really cool.
Yeah, no, I think I actually heard and watched something similar to what you're talking about, and so I've seen that as well. I don't know if it's the same person or not, but I think you're right, and that is one of the point. That is one of the reasons people do cold plunge, just like you said. I think it's, I guess where I do it every day, it's not that big a deal, but there's been times where I've fallen out for a couple weeks, or maybe I was traveling, and it's harder to get back in, right, when I'm not doing it every day, and to start it again is difficult. But I think once you have that routine, it's just a lot easier, kind of like brushing your teeth, right? It's just part of what you're going to do, whether you want to or not, and it becomes less and less of a big deal, I guess, right? And yeah, I do think, I do think it makes other things more easy, or how do I phrase that? Not as challenging, right? When you're challenging yourself every day and things come up, I think they're easier to navigate.
You done took an ice bath before 8 a.m. Like you could fucking do anything.
Right. No resistance to shit.
I used to sit in there for 10 minutes, and I found out that you don't really see any benefits past 5 minutes, increased benefits. So I just do 5 now. But to think that, because I was sitting in 39-degree water for 10 minutes, and that's kind of nuts, man. It's chilly.
That's definitely something I've seen a lot recently. I think mostly fucking from the Rogan podcast. He taught that I've seen his clips a lot with the ice bath, and it's something that has been on my radar, but I have not. I just haven't done it. Obviously,
right?
Even the cold showers, man. Turn it all the way freezing. like you can definitely tell that it is a shock. Like, breathing is harder. Like, I feel like just that initial starting, it's got to be tough. I can imagine just being fully plunged.
And dude, and that's what I was just thinking, because every time I hear that, or like I see one of those videos of someone like just getting straight in, I'm like, I wouldn't fuck with that guy. Like, he's just got his shit like on lock. He just knows he can do anything, you know. But I've never been brave enough to turn the water all the way down.
Yeah.
My shit's all the way up to hot like every morning.
I definitely feel inspired though.
I follow a dude in Canada, and he does the cold plunge, but he has his shit outside, and he goes out with a sledgehammer in the morning, right, and has to break the ice and gets in, and I mean, you're in the negative degrees, right? So his water, I mean, I don't know how cold his water is, but it's a lot colder than 39 degrees, and I don't know, man, that dude's he's just a rock. He gets in there like it's nothing. He just slips in. He's just talking for the video and just.
Right, I'd be like, and chattering.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, but yeah, I mean, I guess it just shows you what happens when he's doing those things every day, and it's just easier and easier for him, right? Like, 'cause I have a thing where I started not maybe like a year ago where I'll just talk to myself when I'm getting in, so my goal is to not have any interrupted tone or words, no change in my body while I'm getting in, right? The way I breathe or anything, and that's challenging, not have any sort of reaction while you're getting in the cold. Or I have a friend that sings when he's getting in, right? He tries to maintain the song while he gets in the cold, and so just, I guess, another way to try to challenge yourself to not react to the cold water in any sort of gasping way, or because that's all mental, right? That gasping is there's no physical reaction that happens, right? It's not a involuntary response. It's a mental thing.
Right, and I think it's awesome, because I'm sure for your friend that does like the singing, or like how you said you'll try to talk with yourself and kind of hold your composure through that, I feel like that would benefit you so much. It probably feels silly a little bit. You're telling other people you sing as you get into this ice bath, but
yeah.
The payoff for that is like, we're all human beings. There's things that like frustrate us, or something that like pulls maybe an involuntary reaction out of us, but really it's like our perception of like, well, it was involuntary because I didn't like make myself feel that way. But the activity, or the activities that you guys are putting yourselves through, or these challenges, I feel like are building that muscle, like your ability to not react upon like outside of interferences. Do you feel like just that, like thinking that you're doing these things, has that trickled over into maybe your personal life or your professional life at all?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because in these around the time I started doing cold plunge, the next 2 years following that, I've done bigger things than I've done my whole life, right? So whether that's all coincidence, I don't know, but definitely made a lot of moves during COVID, and I don't know. I took that as a time of opportunity. So I think
That's awesome to hear.
Yeah, and you just touched on a subject that whole involuntary response that I was actually having a conversation about this not too long ago with somebody on social media, and because of a post that was made, and it was a guy getting his armpit tattooed. You guys have probably seen the video maybe, and he's getting a tattoo, and he keeps jerking, and
Yeah.
I kind of said, holy shit. I was kind of not talking shit, but basically like, hold still, and people are like, oh, it's involuntary. I'm like, bullshit. That's like, you can hold still during a tattoo. There's no involuntary movement that happens, right? You don't just jerk and like, oh, you hit a nerve, and like, no, I've been doing this long enough to know you don't, and getting tattooed long enough, you don't just have body movements that happen during a tattoo, whether you hit a nerve or not. But the mental side though is what causes that, right?
Right. And it's interesting how, like, because, dude, when you was tattooing my leg, I know that I fucking twitched. But I totally agree with you, Jared, that, like, I feel like your mental, there's, like, layering that goes down so deep into, like, what your reaction is to something. Because you have people that you tattoo and they don't fucking move for, like, a whole marathon day and then come back the next day and just don't even move. They'll be like, yeah, it's pretty fucking sore right now. It's definitely like, taco meat right now. But just like don't move. But, living representation of twitchy motherfucker when you put a 5 mag to my fucking ankle. Right?
Yeah, it's the same thing, right? Sitting in the cold or having your body part laying still for somebody to tattoo, and it's the same sort of commitment, right? Of you're going to commit to lay it out for them to do something that's going to hurt. So
I was getting my chest tattooed recently, and at the same time I was getting tattooed, I was reading the book Power of the Subconscious Mind, and I was still pretty early in the book, but I was just really inspired in the heat of the moment to just tell myself. I told myself probably 500-600 times that this don't hurt. Like it just don't hurt. I can't. I'm not struggling. It doesn't feel bad, and I feel like the experience went really well, versus me kind of playing into that side of things. It's like, oh, this does kind of hurt. I'm kind of creating that. I'm attaching that emotion or that belief that I have that's not real. But I was able to kind of shy away from that by just almost convincing myself that it just wasn't a thing. It just didn't hurt at all. And I sat there. I think we went almost 7 hours. And I remember in the beginning, like, thinking to myself, like, okay, this is a little spicy. But as I started reading, my frame of mind changed, and my body's reaction, I feel like changed. And now when I'm thinking of it after the fact, I'm like, man, that's fucking weird. Like that shit don't work. Like that's some voodoo weird shit.
Right, because the moment that starts working, when you like discover the cheat code, you're like, wait a minute, I can tell myself it doesn't hurt during a tattoo. Am I magical? You're like, I want $1,000 million right now.
But I just thinking about that experience, it was a little wild to me.
See, that's really cool because when I was getting my back worked on, I had my first session. It was brutal, man. It was the worst pain I've ever felt from a tattoo, and my back is really sensitive. For some reason, my back's really sensitive. Like I won't even put it in the hot water, right? Once I'm ready to get my upper body, I turn the temperature down, and the rest of the time I have it hitting on my waist and my legs, because if it gets on my back, it's just too sensitive. But I had no idea what I was getting myself into when I started a back piece. And so that second appointment, I was in the hotel room, man. I was nervous for the next day, and I started Googling different pain management techniques, and I came across something you're talking about. And, it went through all these different, wasn't specific to tattooing, it was just pain in general, but it talked about visualization and, visualizing yourself as a immovable mountain and telling yourself you're an immovable mountain, to hold still and to view the pain as, instead of having this anticipatory anxiety when he's, dips in the ink and coming over to you, instead of wondering or dreading the pain that's coming, wondering, oh, I wonder, is this area, what is this area going to feel like, instead of being more neutral, right, or curious. And all these things combined helped a lot, along with breathing too. My next appointment was drastically different than the first one. So I definitely think there's a lot to that. And I do the same thing in cold plunge, right? I have my own little thing that I used to say, I guess I don't really have to anymore, but I used to say in my head, like, I'm a polar bear, and I'd visualize myself as a polar bear getting in the cold water, right? And it does help.
I think that, on a surface level, it's really hard to believe that we have that much power over things. But the more that I read, the more that I listen, the more that I hear stories, I just can't help believe that as human beings, like, we are so powerful, and we actually have so much more control than we're really either led to believe or told. Growing up, that shit was never on my radar. But now that I'm older and digging into that, I'm like, wow, like, there's so much more, that could be possible, or that is possible, but just by how we think about it.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I was, I guess, fortunate enough to have grow up with a dad that did this stuff when I was a kid, right? And he never listened to music. He always listened to audiobooks. He was always listening to some sort of self-growth type audio, right? And a lot of it had visualization, and a lot of his was geared around, life goals, like financial goals and things like that, but same application, right? Like, it's same thing. It's manifesting, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Right. And you had said something that I kind of want to go back to, that I really kind of wanted to pick your brain on. You had said something along the lines as you had a life coach at the time. And now that I'm hearing this about your father, always kind of having his nose in a growth book of some sort, or an audio book. Do you feel like you've always just chased knowledge, or, asking big questions and finding who's got it and trying to get it from him? Do you feel like you've always kind of been that person?
Yes. Yeah, that's, I always have some sort of coach, right? Always. Like, whether it be a life coach or a coach on a specific, that's helping me with a specific thing, I always have some sort of life coach or business coach, always. I think I'm never without one, literally.
Nice. I mean, I feel like that's just like a big commonality with successful people is, and there's like this whole category of like the self-built thing. We've talked about that, but really, who's self-built anymore, So the moment we start transitioning over to just saying that we have mentors and that we have teachers, we have coaches, people that push us in the right direction in life, you really start making like real gains from it, right? Because you start taking it more and sticks to you a little bit more. Maybe that doesn't apply to everyone, but I do think that's commendable that you've always kind of sought out teachers. If you don't mind me asking, kind of where are you at right now? Being a 30-year tattooer, I'm kind of curious about what kind of bigger questions you have, because I'm sure there's tons of people that are like, they see the OGs and they're like, dude, they got to fucking figure it out. They don't have questions and stuff like that. But it's honorable to know that you do, so, kind of where are you at right now?
As far as, you mean life in general, or tattooing related, or what do you mean?
I mean, I guess, because I know you have a shop. I know you've been tattooing for 30 years, obviously. Of course, just like everyone else, you have a personal life. So, with where you're at right now, where do you feel like your biggest focus is? Where are you trying to really hit it home for 2024?
Well, I actually have a meeting in Orlando this month with a business advisor, and we're doing one-on-one, and essentially it's, she specializes in scaling businesses and resolving bottlenecks, and so I'm really focused on that this year. Is I want to open 2 other studios, and I need some bottlenecks addressed in order to do that. I plan on tattooing less. I've gotten to a point where I just had a doctor's appointment, and at this point both my hands, right? So my thumb and my ring finger on my left hand is numb all the time. My ring finger on my right hand just started to go numb. So he's telling me, I got really bad carpal tunnel forming, and it's the tattooing, right? It's just tattooing so long. And so as much as I love tattooing, my plan is to retire this year from tattooing. And I have a couple other business ventures as well, and I don't know if I'll, totally stop. I've never stopped tattooing. I don't know what that would be like, right? I don't know if I would say like, well, geez, I want
Right.
to.
Man, I'm like getting a tear in my eye right now.
I don't know if it'll be like, hey, well, I still want to, tattoo once a month, or I don't know. I don't know what that's going to look like. So I'll navigate that as that comes. But that's what I'm focused on. He's telling me if, I continue what I'm doing, then it's going to be a need for surgery, right? Because it's just going to continue to cause further damage. So I don't know. Like right now, I sleep with like braces on, right, on my hands. I got to sleep with them on and keep my wrist straight, and it's just crazy. But so I don't know. Outside of that, and also, I've been building a course. So I've been making a course. That's actually why I have a lot of this equipment, and it's a business of tattooing course, essentially, teaching people how to get the most out of their studio and set it up as a professional business, and get as much profit as possible, that sort of thing. How to structure just from the foundation up is what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And when the time comes, if there's anything we can do to help support that movement for you, it would be awesome to be able to do that or try to help.
Yeah, we were just talking about that not too long ago, just like education and tattooing in general, and how I do think there's a little bit of a movement going on, just not tattooing in general, but just like this whole like the information age, right? But I feel like tattooing's still coming around to it. There's a ton of courses and stuff, but I don't think there's ever a shortage of that. You know, I feel like
I love that, man. I think that the industry needs that. We need more people who are willing to educate and not focus on just the art, the technique of how to lay a tattoo into the skin, but the business side of things. I'm a 10-year tattooer, and I was doing things just today that I should have done years ago, that I felt so lost in the process. I felt so just like clueless, almost helpless in a way. Like I have no idea what I'm doing right now, and where do I even go to get this information, and I am part of a course right now with Ryan Roy, a financial coaching course. But even in that, I feel like my peers in the group are just so far behind where we all should be, just being business owners. It feels like the whole is just behind. I know each state's different and everywhere's got different regulations, but it shouldn't. I feel like I shouldn't be as clueless in that area as I am. Yeah,
that's one of the things. That's what gave me the idea. Is so I used to teach seminars quite a bit, and at these conventions I'd go to, right? And in fact, I think my first one was Portland. I did do one at Josh's Evergreen before, or maybe twice. I don't remember, but anyway, we would get the business part would come up, or you could say I would touch on it, and it was just interesting because I guess usually at the seminars they don't talk about business, right? It's usually, like you said, it's technique, but there was a lot of interest in that, and I get a lot of questions with the business stuff, and so that made me think, well, geez, I should do a course on this. And then I did some one-on-one coaching with some tattoo shop owners that approached me, and helping them get maximize their studio essentially, and just model after everything that I've done, because our studio is unique, how it's ran, and how I have a studio associate, I have a manager of the studio, and they're handling all the day-to-day stuff. My goal is just for artists to come and tattoo. That's it. Like they don't have to deal with phone calls and talking to clients, except during a consult, and again, just maximizing their time too, where they can tattoo and they can go home at a decent hour and be with their families and just have a personal life versus what we used to do, or what a lot of us have done or still do, and work these ridiculous hours, right, and come home and draw too, and so I just haven't done that in years, and nor does any artist in the studio do that. So anyway, that's how the idea for a course started. At first it was about technique and tattooing, and then I switched and scrapped that whole idea to do more of a business course, because a lot of shop owners don't have any background in business, right, at all.
Yeah.
That is my background. I've had several businesses, and some of them I've sold prior to the tattoo studio. So that's why I thought there could be some value there with the course.
Yeah, we probably 2 months back, I think we actually connected originally on the post we made about a sleeve I did, and it had the cost involved in the video, and we didn't realize, because our intentions behind the post wasn't to trigger anyone, it wasn't to brag, it was really to educate clients who were wanting to come and get tattooed to have a realistic vision of what it would take. That was kind of our goal. I had no idea how many tattooers would get triggered by a dollar sign, and I think that really kind of told me that how uncomfortable of an area that can be. I mean, we were blown away.
Oh yeah.
It's funny. So I had the same experience, and so there's two reasons. I'll touch on that in a second of why that resonated with me. But I posted if you scroll back far enough on my Instagram, there's something I shared that I just have gotten off the internet of kind of averages and what an apprentice is charging, and what a semi-seasoned artist and a fully seasoned artist is charging, and that got not really a negative attention. There was actually a lot of artists and some big namers that reached out and wanted to be involved in getting more of an accurate number based, instead of lumping all tattoo shops in, because that's obviously going to include scratcher shops too, right? So he wanted to let's just get quality artists and get all the numbers from the quality artists. How long does a sleeve take you? How much did you charge? And there's a lot of artists giving me their input. And so over the next couple months, I compiled all this information and put out an accurate chart of okay, these are all really good artists, artists that I consider to be really good. And here's all the pricing, and then averaged everything. I put that out, and I got the same thing you did. People were pissed. There were some big namers that messaged me that comment that I had to block, and because it turned into drama, and they're saying that you shouldn't be putting that out there. I'm like, what the fuck is the problem? They could call the shop and find that out. What does what does it matter?
Right.
Was this a secret?
Right. And that's exactly what I didn't like feeling, because I have my day rate listed on my website, but when you come in and you find out that it's 9 sessions for a sleeve, it felt like a shock. It felt like I was hiding that information. And I don't want to feel like that. This is my rate. This is what it takes. I'm not hiding from anyone. I'm not trying to keep this in the bag until I talk to you and try to convince you. That's not my goal. But I felt like that. I kept having that feeling during consultations. And that was the reason for the post.
Yeah, and even having put your rates on your website, just from my perspective, it becomes really messy when you're trying to break down every little possible kind of tattoo that someone would want, because as tattooers we know you can't, it's
Tons of variables.
It's so many variables, right? So from my perspective, building the website becomes okay, well, the simplest information is the best, but still giving people rough estimations. But even then, on the back end, you're almost, from our perspective of giving the most generalized and easy to digest information, you're still kind of making them do the math on the back end, right? Because they're oh shit, the rough estimation for a sleeve is 7 to 11 sessions, somewhere around there, and it's X day rate. they're still doing that math and whatnot. But and you guys feel free to speak on this, but I really feel like it's only a percentage of the time that people are doing that math before consultation, right?
Yeah, they come in, they're like,
right. They're either they know and they're just like down, which is, I think a lot of tattooers relate. That's like a dream client, right? It's like just down no matter what. Or it's that. It's like, oh my God, I thought it was like that one full day, the whole thing was going to get done. But it's just crazy with that, to piggyback on that, just because I feel like you can relate to this too, Jared, with that post you had made, like that little animation about like your lymph nodes and all that shit. It's crazy how just some like no bullshit. This is just facts. I'm not even trying to bullshit. I'm just giving general information here. It's crazy how general information like that's like not even contingent on us all the way just blows up, and it just like irritates people.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's just crazy.
Yeah, my experience with all that has been nuts for the past 15 years, right? Because I've been in health board meetings and like arguing back and forth with other shop owners, right, in the middle of a health board meeting about using a fucking clipcord sleeve, and I'm like, what the actual fuck is going on right now? And I'm like, why do all these things? It's like, God, are so many tattoo artists that fragile? Like, I don't know. I don't understand it. There was a time I was talking to a big name tattoo artist at a convention, and she's like, shh, like we got to be careful about talking about this right now. And my God, he's even afraid to talk or somebody overhear him talking about regulation, right, and the need for regulation. And I'm like, what is happening? And I still don't fully understand. I mean, I kind of do. A lot of them don't pay their taxes, and they think, well, I just don't want the government in my shit because, that means I'm going to have to be legitimate. I have to do this. I'm going to have to do that. And it's all fear-based. And they think, oh, we're going to be forced to use these certain kinds of inks. And, like, all that would happen anyway, right? It's just like any trade, plumbers, electricians, like all those people, these tradesmen helped form this foundation of regulation and standards, right? It's not like the government come in and said, this is how you electricians are doing this. You know what I mean? They rely on information from the industry to form the foundation and the framework of these regulations. And to me, what's crazy to me when they push back against it, like it protects the art, right? It protects tattooing, and it protects the public. It's health and safety, right? So I don't get it. It's like two really important pieces, and if you're making it harder for some inexperienced person to come into tattooing, that's protecting our art and our craft. So I don't get it, other than they have their own agenda, right? Like they don't want the government in their business for their own personal reasons. But as a whole, if you look at it as this art form that so many of us love so much, we'd want to protect that, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I think like trying to hide it or stay low key or not let someone help, eventually, like you said, they're gonna step in either way because the industry is getting so big. I think that it is just a tattoo, but we forget often about hepatitis, AIDS. Like you could really get someone sick. So to have these people come in to try to help create these guidelines, but you're saying no, they're going to create them anyways. And I feel like when they create them anyways, without your help, that's when them not having the knowledge, the background, the experience to be able to create the correct guidelines, that's when you have the stuff that happens that you don't want to happen, I would think.
Yeah.
Right.
It's exactly it. It's like what's going on with the FDA right now, right? Now the industry's like, oh, we need to come together. And like, oh, now we need to come together and do this. And I was in one of their groups, and I finally just bounced because, again, we got some arguments in there. And I was like, you know what? This is the same old shit. Like, it's just a bunch of self-serving people. They're not looking at the big picture. And I just couldn't do it. I said, you know what? The guy who invited me, he was kind of the founder of this movement that's going on with the FDA. And I was like, I'm fucking out. Like, I just don't. I'm like, I don't even fucking care. I'm like, whatever happens, happens. I think it's good that the FDA is getting involved because it's going to force this upon the industry, right? Because since they rejected it, now it's going to be forced upon us. And I'm like, it needs to happen. I guess this is a good opening for it, right? Because the FDA still wants our input, right? They still want help. Like, it's not like they just want to come in and do it all for us. So,
right. And that kind of leads me to, for any tattooers that don't know, I mean, I can't imagine there's a ton that don't know about this going on, but exact dates and things, I feel like, get lost in translation because you got to really, like, fucking download that PowerPoint to get the information or go to that FDA website. But if I'm not mistaken, MOCAR, the Modernization of Cosmetic Arts Regulations, that is effectively going into place June 1st. Of this year, if I'm not mistaken. And I had gone through and I read just some general things, and I think that you're pretty well educated on these things too. Obviously, you've been in health board meetings and whatnot. And obviously, you just shared quite a bit of your thoughts on that. But, for kind of people that are pushing against these things and kind of really just adopting a lot of these standards that, like, the UK has right now on cosmetic arts or, and inks and stuff like that. What do you say, what do you have anything left to say to people that are, like, pushing against that? Because I agree that I don't think there's going to be a lot of downfall, especially since we have the APT, the Alliance of Professional Tattooists, that are all, it's people of the tattoo community that are working alongside the FDA, with I think his name's Ben. I think that's the guy that's leading all that stuff. But yeah, like, are you part of the APT or?
No, I'm not, and that's why. And actually, Ben was the one that invited me to that Discord, and we don't see eye to eye on this topic, and so that's why I just opted out of it. But they want less regulation, right? And I view it as that we're underregulated and we need proper regulation. So I think we used to be aligned on our agenda, and then that changed at some point, and I didn't want to be involved in what the agenda is. And I think there's some self-serving agendas going on there. And I don't know, man. I don't know anywhere that's overregulated, and that's all of a sudden become a focus of, like, oh, do you need help with overregulation? I'm like, where is overregulated? I don't know anywhere. I don't know anywhere that's properly regulated, right? Like, it's
right.
It's
and this is the interesting information that you can't get this on the APT's website. I think you have to actually join to become a member to see what they are pushing, like what agenda they really have. But you would think, from the outside looking at it, you would think that they would be pushing for normal regulations, or at least coming to an agreement on a standard that, like, this is going to keep us safe and it's going to keep other people safe. Even at just like a baseline, right? You would think. So that's interesting to know that it's like the APT is really pushing for less regulations.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought it was the opposite.
See, and that's exactly what I was just fucking thinking, because, again, you would think, like, all right, they're coming in to do these things, and like you had said, Jared, work with a community of people that are in the industry to actually generate these proper standards, because they know better than anyone. You guys are tattooers. Fucking Joe Schmo, he's sitting on a bench, like, as a fucking governor or something. He doesn't know shit. But that's wild that they want less regulations, because it's really only keeping people safe, right?
Yeah, right. And Ben does know a lot about this topic, right? I mean, he did this in his own state. He lobbied, and he spent a lot of time getting proper regulations in his state, and just to have different politicians trying to deregulate later on, and obviously that becomes silly politics. I mean, you can't avoid some of the ridiculous politics that go on, right? But but he did do a lot of work, and so he knows what that's like, and he knows what's involved. Right before COVID hit, I literally addressed the house here, right? So I was at a meeting, and I addressed the house and told them my concerns. I had 2 House reps that were on board with supporting what I was trying to do in Utah, and then COVID hit and it all fell apart, right? So then I was just, again, like wind out of my sails. Like, God, this has been going on for 15 years. I'm like, maybe I'm just done trying to do this and get so much pushback, right? Like you get some people who are supportive, but you get more pushback than anything, and it just gets frustrating because you're like, look, I don't understand what I'm trying to do. Good things. I'm trying to do good things for the industry and the craft, and you guys don't want it. I think there's a lot of lack of education and ignorance of just how things work, right? Like legislation, for example. Like, oh well, if we do that, then they're going to force us. You don't understand, like, everything has to go through this chain, right? And everything has to be approved, and it has to go to the next one. And it's not that simple of just the government waltzes in and changes our whole industry. Like it's just like Europe. You hear about, like, oh, they're gonna take away colors. I'm like, well, no, because that's, again, has to be passed, has to go up the chain, and you see it was fought and it was denied. And so I just don't think people know. Just like I was fighting with a guy last week, or debating with a guy. Eventually I had to block him too. He was coming on our Instagram, our studio Instagram, and saying, he's commenting back to something I said. It said most states don't have tattoo licensing, which is true. And he said most states do. And I'm like, I don't think you know what a license is, man, because most states don't have licensing. He's like, well, I had to go to Hawaii and I had to get a license. I'm like, no, that's a permit. That's a health department permit. That's not an occupational license. I said, I'm talking about an occupational license, like what barbers have, and cosmetologists, and tile setters, and like we talked about, all these trades. And he still didn't get it. I finally said block, because he kept, once it becomes toxic and insulting and disrespectful, like, I'm done, right? I'm not gonna keep something like that on my shit. But so that's the perfect example of just ignorance, right? He doesn't know the difference between occupational licensing and a permit to tattoo. So.
Right, and this is just stuff that I feel like so many service people deal with. Like, you go to be an electrician, I don't think they teach you about like licensing and shit. They're probably more focused on teaching you how to do like the actual craft. And I did actually watch that piece of content you were talking about with the Hawaii like permit license thing, and I was like, huh, that's fucking crazy. Actually, I think I told you about that.
Yeah.
Because it's like some kind of like, it's a crazy technicality that don't even have anything to do with like tattooing somebody, which we all know that if you just bought a machine off Amazon, you could tattoo someone in their basement, for nothing. You don't have to know any of that shit to do it. But, I also, having watched some of that content that you posted, I know that in Utah, it seems especially rough in that area, like not even using clip cord sleeves.
And
like,
when you say rough, you just mean like free for all. Just kind
right.
of
It just seems like there's a lot of places where there are no, like where you said, Jared, there's like, you don't have to even have a license for it, but there's a lot of like states that don't even have like strong health regulations and stuff.
I think Pennsylvania, they don't have a health board at all. Like, you don't have to do shit to tattoo in Pennsylvania.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah,
I went to a convention once, and it was just a free for all.
In Pennsylvania?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it was. I think it was the. Oh fuck! I can't remember that. It was in Pittsburgh though. Yeah, it was like, when are the health people going to come around and check my shit? And they're like, oh, they're not. There's no one.
It's like, I could have laid my stencil 3 hours ago, motherfuckers.
Yeah, I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I remember that correctly. I know in Ohio, it's pretty lenient. We got a shop license we got to renew every year, and we do a health department check once every year. You're supposed to have a release of apprenticeship, but you know how easy those can be to get sometimes.
Right, it's a quick Facebook message to your homie.
Yeah, we have the same thing here, right? And it's here. It's not governed on a state level. It's county to county, so every county's different, right? Every county requires different things and has different regulations, which is nuts to me and very confusing. But we just have, like, so the artist in our county, the artists don't get a permit, just the studio gets a permit, and we renew that. And so then everybody works under the umbrella of that permit, essentially. And yeah, we're not required to use barriers and, something like a clip cord sleeve. It's not part of the regulation. So, obviously everybody
wild.
in our studio does, and I would hope, I don't know why you wouldn't just want to use a clip cord sleeve, but it's like,
right. It's going to protect you and protect your equipment, and protect your client, protect your, who really cares about, what other people think of us, but protecting your image, protecting your craft, like you said, I'm a professional. I'm not just Joe Schmo Scratcher down the street that's going to just tat whatever on you. I got a standard to upkeep.
So with all that being said, how do you feel about all the pen style machines? I mean, with like barriers and contamination, cross contamination stuff. I'm assuming that you probably use. Maybe you still use coils, but with the carpal tunnel and hand stuff, I would imagine probably more of a rotary, lighter pen style.
Yeah, I've used a pen for quite a while now, rotary. I don't even know how long it's been. It's probably been close to 10 years I've been away from coil machines. I really like them. I think they're easier to barrier and to provide that safety. Not that you can't do it with coil machines. I just think it's easier to do it with the pens.
Yeah.
But
so.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say. So out of curiosity, some of the legislation that you're trying to push, or like some main things that you're like, this should be like a standard. What might be a couple of those things?
The biggest thing that I would like to see is occupational licensing in Utah. That the tattoo artists have a legitimate license, and you're required to have an apprenticeship to get the license and take the test and prove your knowledge and experience to hold a license. That's the biggest thing I would like to see in Utah. In fact, I think that should exist everywhere. And then the second part of that I think is equally important, but this is more of a public aspect, but you can do this without this, is the health and safety part of creating a standard of where it should be, and that's where everybody needs to be in the state. And you touched on hepatitis. Well, right now Utah's having a huge problem with hepatitis because a trend that's been going on, I don't know if this is going on all over the U.S. or just big in Utah, but they're having these weekend schools to teach people how to do permanent makeup, and they're teaching them how to do tiny tattoos as well. So they're like, hey, come take my weekend course. You'll be ready to tattoo people's faces and do tiny tattoos. And they're spreading fucking hepatitis so much that the state's like, what are we going to do about this, right? Because we've never seen something like this where hepatitis is being spread so frequently. And that's another thing I gave feedback on, right? They reached out to me. They asked for my opinion on some stuff. And so it looks like what we have coming down the tube in Utah is one governing body for the whole state. And I think that's good versus county to county. So it's a step in the right direction anyway, to have that consistency, right?
Yeah, county to county. I would imagine there's quite a few of them, and for everything to be different, that just sounds like a mess.
That's what I was thinking. It just sounds so messy.
So many moving parts to keep track of.
Yeah, you travel 5 miles and it's different over there, right? I guess that's just that's crazy. And to go back, I forgot to add this, but how I saw your stuff originally, that post about what you were charging, was I've been friends with a guy on Facebook. I met him at a convention years ago. He's not a tattoo artist, he's a collector. And he essentially bashed you, right? He made this post about you, putting you on blast, and I told him how disgusted I was by it. And I was like, dude, we've been friends on Facebook a long time, whatever. I've never disagreed with something. I was like, this is where it broke the camel's back, right? The straw broke the camel's back. We're done. I got to part ways with you, man. And so I had to say my piece and just unfriend him, and because it was a huge, crossed a big line for me. And that's when I went to look you up right after that, and see what everything was about. And he's a trust fund baby. He's one of these guys that has been tattooed by every amazing artist in the world, right? And he's covered, and he's anyway. That's how I even found your stuff, was just somebody putting you on blast on.
I love that. I love that.
Me too, man. And it's funny, dude, because I had some consults lined up for that following week, and one of them was a sleeve. And he was like, man, I seen it originally, and yeah, I really felt that I should just cancel because it was a lot. But as I was reading, as I was educating myself and seeing the perspective, and I was like, no, I just decided to go with it. And he was educated. He knew what to expect, and he felt like he was pretty clear on the process. But yeah, there was a few tattooers that made some funny posts, or I think one guy made a whole video of a pig, and I don't even know, but
it was like he had like a leg sleeve that he had done where it was like kind of patchwork stuff, and it was like it was satire, complete satire, but it was like a tattoo that was maybe no bigger than $50, and it was like, this is like $18,000 for this, and
and to me, I'm an easygoing dude. Like it takes me a lot to really get upset. So seeing some of that stuff, I was able to laugh and joke about it, and he was like, man, at least you got a sense of humor, but there was a couple guys that were like sending me audio clips on Instagram and talking mad shit, which didn't affect me too much. But waking up every morning, kind of circling back to that morning routine, looking at my phone and letting some of that seep into my psyche, definitely had me second guessing, and I really had to go into a big self-reflection state and just really kind of make sure that my morals were right, that I have the right heart, that I'm doing things I felt was right, and I it was tough, it was a tough month for sure, but I think I came out of that being more sure about myself than ever, really.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just crazy that when we made that post, a lot of the people that and I say a lot because not all, but a lot of the people that disagreed with it, whether it be they disagreed with the price or disagreed with the artwork, disagreed with the piece of content that we even made, they really kind of made themselves known with how they approached the situation, you know what I mean? And then second to that, I'm sure you've probably experienced this, Jared, with just having people fucking come at you online for just sharing good information. But there was several times where you're having conversations with those people. Like this one person in particular that even went to your page and started actually dogging on all your tattoos.
You're talking about the one woman that
yes.
She made a story trying to get people to cancel me.
Yeah, she was like, we need to attack him, take him down. But within a 30-minute conversation, it wasn't even texts were getting sent every minute, but it was I was kind of paying attention to it as it was coming through my phone, and it you fucking flipped it on them. They were like, well, I didn't mean to come out and attack you, but I felt attacked. But it was but clearly we can go back and talk about what actually happened.
Well, and it ended with her saying really I was just jealous and envious.
Right.
And really, wish that I was in your shoes, and that's kind of how it ended. So I do think there was a lot of people that got to experience some negative emotion, but seeing the other side and seen some good in it too, you know.
And that's kind of where I was getting at is, albeit there's like big pools of like negativity that kind of land on like a viral post like that. Kind of how you said about the client is, you know, I was reading and, you know, the people that clearly didn't agree with it were making themselves known, but the ones that did, you know, they were like, oh, this is, you know, keep it up. Like, we should talk about this more. And you go to their profile and they're like actually like super badass tattooers and shit.
I had a few people comment and support it who I've been looking up to for a long time. It's the first time I've ever been on a radar of theirs, you know, I thought was dope.
Right. But it's like,
really cool.
I had that for a second.
Brain fart.
But it's just crazy how the people that like clearly didn't agree with it were making themselves known, and the ones that did, if you put them through the ringer, check them out, they were actually pretty good people. But it's funny how like your client said, he got educated and he was like bolstered in what he was doing now, which this is a big it's a big step to take it in a tattoo, you know, especially something like a full sleeve or like a fucking back piece or something. So when you really are going to make that decision, you're spending the money on it, you should probably be informed, or at least like feel good about what you're doing. And those people that were showing up and being negative, it was crazy to see that I don't think anticipated there would be an opposition to it. Like someone else, like, oh my God, someone else believes in this. And they would see that, like going through that post. I do think there was a lot more negative on it than positive. But it's like the positive definitely still outweighed the negative because of people like that were getting up in the messages and being like, well, damn, I was just a little envious and jealous. I didn't anticipate you like having respect for me now that I've attacked you, kind of thing. Which is just another reason why I think information is so important. Like there's a lot of things, especially in the tattoo world, that I think tattooers might be hesitant to share because of like the repercussions of it. But it's admirable, and I think that we can see the admiration in it and just doing it anyway. Like when you have a good heart, or when you are confident about the stuff that you're putting out and the information you're putting out to people, you can never really know what benefit it's going to bring, right?
Yeah, you know what really struck the nerve for me on that was, I think he was something along the lines of, this work is not worth what he's charging. You know what I mean? Essentially like, whoa. Like, who the fuck are you to say that or determine that, right? And that's what I said to him, right? Like, you have no say in it. Like, you're not, and not only that, what system are we using to determine that, right? It's all relative. And the problem, this again stems back to the tattoo industry problem, is since we don't have this, even in most cases, a statewide standard, let alone a national standard. If I call 4 plumbers, for example, and I get pricing from 4 plumbers from a job, we're all going to be pretty consistent on pricing, right? They're going to be pretty close. We're not going to have some huge, like we have in tattooing, right? Like it's not going to be these huge differences in pricing because of this lack of standard. And that's another thing that trades have done and that they've been smart about, because they're not cutthroat anymore, right? So now you're essentially shopping for somebody just based off of quality and style instead of price. And unfortunately, I think that this also touches on the whole scarcity mindset, right? A lot of tattooers have a scarcity mindset, and I don't know if they think they're not deserving of more money. You know, I was in a meeting here in Salt Lake with a bunch of shop owners. We were kind of discussing a lot of this stuff, and it was, again, right before COVID. And one guy said, well, I'm not in this for the money. And I'm like, what do you have a business for then? Right? Like, what? I mean, I know we love tattooing, but we're in this to make money. And I'm like, and you're essentially dumb if you look at it that way, because how are you going to set yourself up in life? How are you going to have a plan for retirement or buy a home? You know how many tattoo artists there are that can't even afford health insurance or buy a home? I'm like, you're fucking doing something wrong, right? Because people that have just jobs have that. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's just, it's pretty mind-boggling when you look at it that way. Like, I met so many tattoo artists that can't even afford a home. They don't own a home. And I'm like, well, maybe something's broken in your system and your thinking then, because you have issues with people charging something and you're not willing to charge more, but then you can't afford shit that an average American can.
Yeah.
So
Right, and I think that's crazy. One thing that we had seen come out of that post, and this kind of ties into the regulations thing, because you had kind of compared trades and how the price differences aren't that wild in like plumbing, right? It's really based on your area and average price and demand. But you would get so many. I want to say it was actually more collectors or just people that got tattoos that would say this on that big post that we had, but it was like, we'll go over to UK and spend $1,000 on this full sleeve. But with that, there's so many people that are also saying that we don't want heavy regulations because now prices are going to go up because these bigger companies are going to buy these regulated companies now that they're regulated, like Empire Inc.'s, for example. It's going to get bought by like Johnson & Johnson, and then prices are going to go up. But UK already has those regulations, and other people are telling me to just go to UK to get tattooed instead. So it tells me that prices aren't getting jacked up in the UK because they have regulations, because people are telling me to go there and get tattooed for cheaper, right? Versus here in America, in the States, where there's like no generalization, there's no regulations over like these ink companies or any of the stuff that people are afraid of, but you have artists that are charging thousands for a full day, versus like a full sleeve getting done for $1,500 over in the UK, where they have maximum regulation. Maybe not max regulations, but definitely well more than what we have here in the States. So you kind of have that contradiction right there that I kind of noticed. So I don't know. I just don't think, because I hear that a lot, talking about this whole FDA update, which, by the way, just for fun facts, it's the first update that's happened to the FDA in 85 years, and fucking huge. But I just don't understand that fear aspect of like prices jacked up, or now I'm gonna have to push my prices up, and I know that people aren't gonna want to come and book with me because of this.
Just that lack mindset, like
Right?
I was talking about.
Exactly.
yeah, that's that whole. I mean, I've had tattoo artists come to the studio like that, and so I've seen it a lot with that scarcity mindset where they're even afraid to charge more, right? And when I did my apprenticeship, for example, fresh out my apprenticeship, the average going rate back at that time, I remember Guy Aitchison used to talk about it a lot, and it was $100 an hour, right? And so I was charging $100 an hour 27 years ago, and you got guys that are charging less than that now, right? And I mean, how much inflation have we had since then, too?
That's
Or
fucking nuts. I saw something about like the price differences on general like groceries over the last year, and it's like prices of groceries have increased by like 40% in just the last year, which is
I'm gonna charge less than
right.
27 years ago.
Holy fuck.
But it's all right here. It's all in the head. It's just fear. It's because I got first year tattooers in the studio that are damn near $200 an hour. And they're putting out quality stuff, and their people skills are on point. Their business systems are in the right direction. They're legit. They show up with good attitudes, and they put their all into it. And it's like they're booked. They're doing tattoos. I mean. I wouldn't say that their tattoo work isn't anything you couldn't find somewhere else for cheaper. I mean, they're doing quality stuff, but there's a lot of good artists here in Ohio, in the United States. Why are these people seeking out them and still paying more? And that post we made exposed a lot of that mindset. It's like, I need to focus on my craft, and just forget everything else. Treat people like shit, tell them they got stupid ideas, not treat them like they're paying my bills. You know what I'm saying? And it's just the mindset. I don't know. I think it's something with just tattooers and being outlaws, or that kind of like wild west kind of mentality. I don't know.
Bunch of pirates.
Yeah. I think you just touched on something too. I think you get a lot of these people that talk shit on capitalism, and some of these same people, they brought that up, like, and so I think that might be part of it too, right? They're disgusted by capitalism, but that's what we live in, right? And you can either take advantage of it or it can take advantage of you. And I don't know, man. I think I like capitalism. Of course, anything can be abused, right? But
Yeah.
capitalism is cool to me because it allows anybody the opportunity to be successful, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
dude, the majority of self-made millionaires in America are high school dropouts. You know what I mean? That's
Right.
that's crazy,
Yeah.
and that's really cool that that opportunity is there.
Yeah. The example of like, you could be rich and still be a shitty person, or you could be rich and be good and do good things with it. And I think it's the same way with capitalism. You could view it as negative, and you could treat it as negative. You can reject it, or you can embrace it and create that positive spin. But if you look at it and believe it's a certain way, that's how you're gonna handle it. That's how it's gonna handle you, kind of thing.
And it's funny with that because like I just watched this like crazy video on TikTok earlier about like the megacorp in America, like how all these different companies like Walmart and shit are owned by like sub companies, but like that one sub company is like owned by like 4 other sub companies.
Like BlackRock and
That shit, exactly that. And it's like your money really is like capitalism. So that's really what I was getting at. It's like capitalism is what you make it, right? So those same people that are bitching about how they can't get anywhere with themselves or can't make a name or can't, get their own money are also the people going to Walmart and like buying all their groceries, buying all their medication, and they're not even stopping to think about
ordering
like
supplies off Amazon.
Exactly. You just get all your stuff in the most easily accessible way without even, and this is difficult stuff to come across. I'm like, when I say this, I'm not even like trying to blame, say like, oh, every person that shops at Walmart's a problem, but it's like, it's so difficult it's so easy to bitch about these things, but it's so difficult to actually get the information you need and find the right narrative that's going to push your vote in the right direction with what should be the biggest things, right? So like finding like that little company that sells shampoo and it's not like owned by a megacorp thing, but like I said, the main thing I was saying is like it's so easy to bitch about shit like that, or to like this whole FDA regulations things to bitch about that, but not even like try to find the information, or with like capitalism to try to, like you said, embrace it and take it.
Understand it.
Right, exactly, to even understand it. But you have to embrace it first. You have to like stop bitching about it. You have to get off your soapbox at some point and start trying to do something about it. And I think that probably has a lot to do with like taking responsibility for oneself.
Yeah.
Like I really can control my outcome. But when people don't have the ability to take responsibility for themselves, I feel like it becomes very easy to point the finger and just like fall back when, if they feel like they're getting cornered on something, like, well, you can do it, you can make a change. It's like, no, I can't. Nah.
Well, and I definitely experienced that. I mean, the first half of my career, it was only 5 years, but I definitely had some outlooks on things that did not serve me, and maybe even hearing some of this conversation right now, I'd be like, man, fuck you,
Right.
But I got around the right people who helped me understand and show me the right way, and I think that really that's, for me, is a goal, to help people understand, that you can operate on a higher level. You can grow, you can make changes that benefit you, and not be a self-serving individual.
Right.
I don't know. There's a lot to that, and it's really hard for me to even explain fully, because I think I'm still on this journey of like trying to really understand, learn more about the industry. I've always kind of felt a little bit of like an outcast. I've never really related to a lot of tattooers, and their mindset and how they feel about things. You know, so when I would go do shows, like it's hard for me to really connect with a lot of people because I just felt different. But you know, we've kind of started this podcast and not really knowing like what we want to touch on or how we really want to affect things. But I think just shining the spotlight on gray areas is big for me. You know, we had an episode a few weeks back where we were just talking about a lot of OG tattooers being gatekeepers, and but it's like, you know, if you want people to respect it, like show me, you know, work with me, try to understand me so I can understand you, kind of thing. So I don't know. There's just a lot of areas that I think that the industry needs to grow, and you know, I think that this conversation we're having right now, you know, hopefully helps a lot of people. You know.
Yeah, I did not expect. I mean, I guess didn't have much expectation. Just like stoked to get on an episode with a new guy we met online, but I didn't anticipate it to be such good conversation, like this great. You know, and I think that these are talks that should happen more. And obviously, I think they are happening a lot more these days, especially with social media, just the age of information. But kind of similar to what you were just saying, is, you know, if you want respect in it, you have to be open to like teaching someone, or even on the reverse side of that is like if you want to be respected, you kind of have to be open to learning or being taught something. You know what I mean? Because we touched on that too. A lot of I think the new age of tattooers. I mean, and there's a lot of people coming in just like with their fucking iPads and swinging some crazy shit and like being like, what do I need the fucking old school shit for? I don't need that shit. You know, I got my iPad, my Apple Pencil. You know, but you know, I'm stoked about this. You know, this whole podcast. I'm stoked about you know, this whole age of information and stuff. Because me being a non-tattooer, there's seemingly only so many things I can really talk about, but I mean, I feel like collectors should be involved in this conversation too in a lot of ways. You know, and a lot of the tattooers that have been in the game for a while, I mean, even new tattooers, but just getting into some of these fucking talks that just don't happen, you know?
Yeah, that's...
I think... go ahead.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying with that whole, you know, post I made about the lymphatic system is, I told you a lot of collectors reached out to me, and there were some artists that did too, and, you know, obviously some of it was positive, some of it was negative, but there were no collectors that were negative, right? Because all of them like informed decision making, the idea of informed decision making. Like, for example, you touched on unregulated inks. Like, well, our inks in America have never been regulated, right? You could fucking have anything in those. I mean, you got acrylic-based inks out there still, and there's a lot of tattooers that don't even know what the fuck they're putting in people's bodies, right? And again, that's the lack of information for that client. They didn't get a choice, right? They had no informed decision making. They just got tattooed and trusted that the artist knew what he was using, and was he using something safe, or, you know, that's why one of the things I required in my studio for a lot of years is it has to be inks that has met European regulations, right? European standards. So, because that has to go through testing. You know, the heavy metals have to be under 1 part per million, and they have a certain set of standard, and so that's what we've always used at the studio to be able to, you know, not only for my own peace of mind and to feel good about what we're offering, but also it helps when you can tell the public, like, look, we use, the only inks we use have met European standards, since America doesn't have any.
Yeah. Would you be open to sharing what some of those inks might be, or what you guys use?
Yeah, I mean, I don't use them anymore, but, you know, Fusion is one, world famous. You know, has met European standards. I believe Eternal has, because essentially that was the same dude that started Fusion, right? He was the one doing Eternals. You know, pretty much anybody that's selling can sell into Europe, right? Any of the inks that are selling to Europe that met those standards. But I like, I mean, I mostly use world famous myself.
Yeah. I use a lot of the world famous Pooch's neutral gray set.
Hmm.
I use that, and then I use the Empire gray wash. But yeah, I mean, you even just saying like most tattooers don't even know what they're putting in to their clients. I can say I'm one of those. I'm not I'm not sure. I just try to use reputable brands, and I really haven't switched up over the years. It's been Eternal, and then it's been Empire. So there's only really two I've used, but I've never done extensive diving into anything that's in them, and I didn't even know that that would be how to kind of just check with Europe. That's not something that's been on my radar. Yeah, I've been curious, but like you said, I don't really know how to find that information.
Yeah, if you go to the company's website and they have a safety data sheet, I mean, you can read everything in there.
Gotcha.
Like I know, World Famous has it there on their site. Fusion does. I don't know, since I've only used those two for so many years.
Yeah.
I haven't looked at other
Sure.
companies, so I don't know at this point. What I'm sure there's several others, that meet those standards. But you can definitely go look at the safety data sheets on their website. And I mean, if they don't have any, then that would be a huge red flag to me.
Yeah. It's good piece of advice.
Man,
right there.
dropping bombs on this episode, dude.
Yeah, and I think we've been recording for almost 2 hours, so I don't want to keep you all night. But
Man, if you're open, it would do. I think just from me, I'd love to have you back on for another episode at some point, just to pick your brain.
Yeah.
There was one last question I wanted to ask you. It was something that popped up for me earlier, and we were talking about what were a couple main things that you thought would be wise to have widely regulated, and you mentioned an apprenticeship. And I'm just curious what your outlook on an apprenticeship is, or what that looks like to you.
What it looks like to me?
Yeah, like what?
So, I mean, you kind of touched on these first year tattooers and stuff you have in your studio, and I have an apprentice that is, well, she's no longer apprentice, she's tattooing now, but she was the same way, right? When I released her, opened the gates, she was charging a good rate right from the beginning, and she's $200 an hour, and I mean, she hasn't been tattooing real long, but she's killing it. She's really good, and that makes me feel good, right? That I was successful in my teaching, that she was able to transition so fast and just start tattooing and make the best living for herself that she's ever had. And so for me, my apprenticeships, you're asking like how I apprentice, or
if we were trying to push the standard of everyone having to go through this.
Oh, okay.
Like what would be some requirements, or what would be kind of that and I mean I know it could be a long process, but maybe just some major things about it that you think are just musts.
Well, I think just like any other trade. Here, I'm gonna hold my calculator real quick. Let's see. So I think as a minimum, and I know some places that have put these into play. It seems to be a good average is right around 2,000 hours, right? I know some places have gone less, some 1,000 or 1,500, whatever, but something's better than nothing. But I guess I just pull those numbers of kind of what I believe an average apprenticeship takes, and so I think there has to be a standard of hours, right? That this is how long you've apprenticed, and somebody has signed off on this time, a licensed person, or a person who's already proven to be, a professional, and then there has to be education material in place, right? Because somebody has to be able to, just like if I used to have a tile setter's license, right, years ago, And obviously there's a book, there's books you study from, and because you have to have material to be able to take the test and pass the test. So anyway, and I think there needs to be study material, and I use that. I use Reinventing the Tattoo. Guy Aitchison's book is standard in my apprenticeships, and I like how he has little quizzes. So I give them the quizzes, and at least there's something that I can go off of there. And so all my apprentices have to go through that whole book, and then just the time, man. So I think the time and education material and testing and proving that you've retained your knowledge, and I don't think it has to be super complicated. Just like what most people have.
Yeah, I like the time aspect, because that's been something that's a hard question to answer. For me, I think a lot of it was kind of based on, well, how hard do you want to work? But having a standard makes a lot of sense, because I've seen people go through apprenticeships really fast, but then I've also heard of like 5-year apprenticeships, and I'm like, whoa, what were you doing that whole time? So having a standard, I think, to make sure that they're up to a certain level but not being taken advantage of, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think so. Again, here in Utah, when I got my tile setter license, I had to work under somebody for 2 years. I had to have a full-time position for 2 years, and that was to lay tile, which I personally think that doing tattoos is just as important, if not more important, because you're dealing with, again, pathogens and people's health and safety, right? So it's just crazy to try to wrap your head around that. All these trades have this in place, and we don't, and we're dealing with body fluids, right? And the body and the skin. So it's fucking crazy that we don't have that.
Yeah, I agree. For a barber to cut hair needs something, but for me to break open someone's skin and have their plasma, blood on my hands and not have to answer to next to anyone, I do believe that's wild.
It is.
Yeah, I think so too, man.
And for sometimes like 16 hours at a time. It's not like a haircut takes like 45 minutes. You maybe cut like 6 to 10 people that day. Maybe you're a beast. You just go hard and you cut a bunch of people that day. But you could be tattooing for like 16 hours at a time sometimes.
I know, and look at all the pros that comes from that, right? So if you have that in place, let's just say you had that minimum time. Let's just say it was 2 years, like the tile setter. Well, number one, I mean, there's a shop down the street from us that they put out apprentices in about 2 or 3 months, right? They make an apprentice into a tattooer in like 2 to 3 months. That's how quick they fling them out. And there's several shops like that across the U.S., right? And then there's just new shops opening all the fucking time, and the majority of them are inexperienced people opening these shops, right, that didn't have a proper apprenticeship, and it's just crazy. So, I mean, it's just going to keep becoming more and more saturated, and then people don't know. Like, most consumers don't know that there's no licensing in most states, right, and that you don't have to prove experience in a lot of places, and they're like, what, really? Like, fuck, I figured that all this was regulated and all these people had to prove that they were an experienced professional to open a shop, and that's not the case. So the public is pretty out of the loop on information as far as that goes too. They think it's just safe for them to go anywhere.
And that's crazy too. What if the whole world knew that you had to be licensed? How many shops would probably lose business, right? How many artists that like haven't gone and gotten legit, that aren't being safe, they don't have that standard that they're holding to themselves because there's no one else saying like, hey, you need to do that. Just to think how many people would lose business if everyone in the world, every collector knew like, oh shit, they're supposed to be professional and licensed and they're not. Like, oh, I better start actually doing my research now, And I feel like that's why people are afraid. It's shit like that. It's the what if. Oh, man, if people fucking knew I had to be professional and licensed, I'd fucking lose every client. And I know there's somebody out there that's maybe not listening to this right now, but there's someone out there right now that's thinking that shit. Like, oh, they can't fucking know. And that's kind of what, to me, when I saw your original post, I actually had saw your response to that like animated video, and you were like, I just don't fucking get it. I just don't understand. This is all good for us, and like it's just got to be shit like that. Is like, God forbid people actually know that I have to, pay attention to what I'm doing. I have to know shit.
The only research clients do right now is just, is this person good or not? Like that's.
And even then, it's like, I feel like people really barely look that up either.
Yeah.
It's like, what kind of work does he even do?
Yeah.
Full realism? Give me the signature on my shoulder.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. A lot of people, I think, are just lazy. And, I mean, you'll see it. You probably see it, too. You get tagged in it on Facebook, whatever, and they're saying, oh, I'm looking for an artist to do my tattoo, and they didn't even say what the fuck they want. You get tagged in it, and so do 100 other people, right? And that's what they're basing. That was their research. Like, oh, okay, well, here's all these picks, all these choices, and I'll just go with it. And but then you have these clients that actually take their time and they do their research, and obviously that's a prime candidate, right? A prime, the type of clients you and I are looking for, right? These
100%.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, man, this was good. This was good stuff. I appreciate you jumping on here and chatting with us, man. Maybe we could officially meet in person sometime.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. Happy to talk with you guys again sometime, and your work's awesome, man. I think I told you that before, but that's just another thing that I guess struck the nerve with me, where you're doing good work and you're charging for it. Like, who the fuck cares? Like, what? Why is somebody gonna hate on that? It'd be different.
Well, I think I was gonna say, I think a lot of it just comes down to supply and demand, man. If I hear you're booked out for 2 years and you're not raising your rate, there's something wrong with that. I think
right.
And that's really what I've based it off of. If I'm booked out, and my plate's full, why not? I got dreams that I'm chasing.
Yeah, and that's good for you. I mean, you want to be able to have the things we talked about, right? Like, you want to own a home, and
you're right.
You need to have a retirement plan. Like, there's all these things you need. So
don't want Uncle Sam coming back like fucking 10, 15, 20 years later and be like, oh shit, you didn't pay all these taxes, motherfucker. Right?
That would be bad. And I know there's a lot of shops like that. A lot of artists not paying their taxes, and that would be scary, man. That could be prison time. So that's nuts.
I know over in Germany, where you was talking about, you don't pay your taxes over there, you get a hard time.
Yeah, I know.
Hard time over there.
I know a family here that I grew up with, and I mean, the IRS seized their home. Right, like they took their house. So it's
fuck.
Yeah,
that's terrible.
Yeah, man. So.
But so where can they find Jared? Anyone who's watching this show?
Where can they find me?
Yeah, socials. What's your? Do you know your Instagram handle offhand?
Yeah, it's just my name, just Jared Preslar. Yep.
I actually love your tag. It's super easy to find.
The what?
I said I love your Instagram handle. It's actually really easy to find you. I just know your name.
Yeah, that's how all my stuff is on all the social media. It's just my name. Yeah.
Awesome. And your tattoo shop is the Lucky Bamboo, right?
Lucky Bamboo. Yep.
Hell yeah. Well, like he said, he's got a couple artists that work with him. So go check out their Instagram, check out their website. Best shop in Utah year after year, and there's a good reason for that. It's holding a fucking strong ass standard to what you're doing for people, So fucking
respect that for sure.
Right, mad respect. 30-year tattoo, one of the OGs. It's just cool to fucking talk with you, man. Like I said, I'm not a tattooer, so the fact that I'm even here at all, it just feels fucking cool. But yeah, man, really, really stoked to have you on the show. Can't wait for the next one. And I mean, is there anything you want to leave people with? Like one last message for this episode?
I guess just in touching on everything that we talked about of just, I think it's really important people do their research, and when they're looking for an artist and considering everything we talked about, right? And it's not just about the person's art, right? It's multifaceted. It's just more complicated. So, but research works, right? This guy wouldn't be so busy if there weren't researchers. So,
right. Well, anyone who's listened to this before, you guys know you can find our socials below. More Than Tats on Instagram, More Than Tattoos, our website. If you feel called to it, go pick up a piece of merch. Go get a hat, a shirt, hoodie, something. We also have Patreon, which we got special episodes for. It's $1, guys. It's nothing to support this fucking show.
Don't want to fuck off.
Right. But if you're wanting to look for something that's free, you like, share, subscribe, all that stuff helps. Rate our show. Do the algorithm thing. Social media just fucking demands it. But appreciate you, brothers. It was good to have this show with you. Glad to have this time with you. I feel like a lot of good information came out. So, without further ado, that has been another episode of More Than Tattoos, and we look forward to the next one.